I want to tell you a true story from the forgotten 40s in Czechoslovakia. There was a coup. The nation fell to irreversible totalitarianism immediately after the stolen election in 1948. But it was reversed, even though it was irreversible. It was reversed, finally, but only after 40 long, deadly years of state-sponsored slavery. Now, if you stay with me till the end of this video, I want to show you how they lost their freedom and then how they recovered it. We pick up the story in 1945, World War II. The tyrant, Adolf Hitler, had occupied Czechoslovakia during the war, forcing a tyranny of National Socialism onto the people. But at war's end, the Soviets rolled into the nation like conquering heroes, driving the Nazis out to the cheers of the weakened Czech population. And so the nation was now free. But the Soviet communists immediately moved to take that freedom away through a simple, non-military political formula. And I want to read you the formula and tell you why it worked. The liberating communists were not perceived to be the worst of enemies. They operated in the country with quiet flexibility to move public policy slowly in a socialist direction. The formula they were following was one of deliberate and total political conquest. Number one, hide your intentions. And this is why it makes it so difficult to identify communists once a coup begins. Number two, take control of a socialistic political party. That will be the platform from which you launch your entire national coup. And you have to spread division once you get in there. And that is the route to manipulation and then control of that party. Number three, you have to achieve internal party dominance. You have to completely control that party. And you do that through internal electoral fraud. When they have elections within the party, you get rid of all the old leaders and you put your people in charge by cheating. Number four, you fake legitimacy. And you have to have legitimacy, of course, if you're going to be moving your party forward in the nation. And you do this with little meetings, organized meetings, small crowds, protests, and rallies. And of course, a cooperative media will make you look really impressive in the newspapers or whatever the dominant media is of the time. And number five, you talk about being the moral party who knows what to do for the poor guys or for the minorities, and how you will tax the rich and debase the currency and be lavish with entitlements for the minorities. And this softens the population to corruption because you say that you'll be doing this for everyone. And it involves the population in corruption. And that's how you move forward. Then number six, as the moral party, because you're establishing yourself as the moral party, introduce soft, benevolent totalitarianism to the nation. It's for the general good. The government has to be completely in control, but it's for the general good. And again, you get the population used to the idea. Number seven, of course you must deride Christian tradition and Christian law and Christian ethics. The Communist Party is, you have to teach, the party of science and centralized social engineering. And faith, you have to teach, is irrational because God does not exist. So if you can get God out of the picture in all Christian ethics, then you can begin to push this idea of scientific secular statism. And this begins a really deep demoralization of the population if you can preach hard enough disbelief. Solzhenitsyn said this: if you can get everyone to disbelieve in God, then there will not be an honest man left in the nation. How can there be if everyone's believing lies? The lies of the state, the lies of the party. Number 8, indoctrinate the teachers with communist dogma so that they have this scientific secular statism that they can be giving to the students at a young age. Number 9, build a culture of political correctness and mandatory blind compliance. Okay, everyone has to obey. Everyone has to go along. No one can be different. Compliance has to be blind and it has to be mandatory. Number 10, buy all the media you can and promote socialist personalities on that media. And soon the government media will control all thinking. Soon, little by little by little. Number 11, promote communist judges in the courts. so that all of the judges at some point will share this communistic idea of how justice works from the state down. Not real justice, but political justice. Number 12, bribe the weak-minded with subsidies. And of course, peace and affluence. You tell them, go with us, and this is what you'll have. Real peace and real affluence through the subsidies and entitlements that we give you. Number 13, you bribe traitors and quislings with ongoing accolades and titles, of course, and money. And they will betray their country and their party. Number 14, you gradually remove all anti-communists from education and military and the police and, of course, and the party. They have to be removed from it. And communists in the cabinet, and back in 1947 and 48, began bullying all the non-communists, demanding that the entire cabinet be turned over to the communists in Czechoslovakia. And that it was just a constant dripping of demand. We have a few seats now on the cabinet. You need to give us more. You have to give us more. Number 15, create chaos and terror in the culture as a threat. And not only are you starting this up, but you're doing it so that it will increase and escalate. And when you do this, you can just watch the weak melt in non-committal. They will be terrified to stand on principle because there are more and more threats of your party being able to organize more chaos and more terror. And so this happened in 1948, massive, and they called them massive, but they really were not massive communist-led demonstrations. They were really small. But by rumor and by the way that the media twisted it, they made it look massive. They were organized throughout the country. This pressured weak government leaders, parliamentary leaders, to remain neutral over every issue. They wouldn't take a stand. They were so terrified that things might get worse, and the threat would be given to them. Go along with us, or you will see more rioting in the streets. You don't want that. You don't want to be blamed for that. No one wants more riots. So go along with us. And they began doing that. And so this is one way that the communists gained a stronger foothold after every single riot. Number 16, promise the public solutions to chaos and terror. Saying to the public, this current government can't keep order. We know how to do that. Vote for us, put us in, trust us, and we will take care of it and bring peace and order back to the country. And so not long thereafter, after more and more and more rioting in the streets, the president of Czechoslovakia gave in to the communist demand and turned the entire government over to them and to their party. And so then they can stand up and pretend, number 17, pretend to be champions of justice. They're the ones who know better. Number 18, pretend to promote fair elections, but commit widespread election fraud in order to attain the national majority and control of government. And this is on every single list for the coup. You pretend to promote free and fair elections, but you commit widespread election fraud in order to attain national majority and the control of the government. And this happened, in May 1948. After they had seized the cabinet, then they rigged some elections, had some elections to try to show to the whole country falsely that they were the legitimate authority. They wanted to validate the communist victory. And sure enough, they rigged the election, they had the election, they said, we won, and now we have the mandate to govern. The president at that point resigned, and his anti-communist foreign minister refused to resign, and he was found assassinated. So Czechoslovakia at that point became a single-party state. Number 19, according to the formula, you consolidate all your power into one party. You purge the government of all opponents by threatening violence if they don't yield. You criminalize all dissent. No one can criticize this new government. You arrest and assassinate dissenters. You humiliate and slander and discredit any of those who are allowed to live. Any of the dissenters who are allowed to live will be humiliated publicly humiliated, humiliated in the press, slandered in the press. Number 20, you ensure, and this is number 20 on the list, you ensure the impossibility of free speech in politics or honesty in any future election. You close off any possibility of any future free election. Now, you may have a number of parties listed in the country, but they all exist and they all function under one umbrella of one party, a single party in the government. Now, from this point number 20 forward, Czechoslovakia was really lost. It was game over. The nation was in a socialistic lockdown. No travel, no freedom of expression, no freedom of inquiry. Only the fear of running afoul of the elite and getting killed for it. The new communist government made it abundantly clear from day one that they would control all thinking and all speech, dictating endless series of lies. Along with the new rules for compliance, a secret police was unleashed on neighborhoods. Listening devices were placed in private homes. The state claimed ownership of everything. Dissenters had property confiscated before their lives really got much worse. Random people were arrested and then tortured and then imprisoned and shot just to get the message out. You'd better walk carefully if you want to live and conform to every new edict without any hesitation. Solzhenitsyn described life in the communist world in this way. He said, a network of informants saturated the population. Secrecy and distrust permeated the people, so much so that any overt activity was perceived as a provocation. How many denunciations, he said, there were against one's own close relatives or against friends who had fallen under the sword. And so the free market in Czechoslovakia was destroyed then. According to the second formula, intellectuals disappeared. Christianity was condemned. No words could be spoken but the government lies, the approved government lies. And by the way, these changed from week to week. And this is one thing that kept the people off balance, trying to figure out what was approved. And this darkness continued for 40 long years. George Orwell saw the entire world slipping in that direction during the 1950s and the 1960s. He said, always eyes watching you and the voice enveloping you. Asleep or awake, indoors or out of doors, in the bath or bed, no escape. Nothing was your own except the few cubic centimeters in your skull. And Orwell knew that the coup formula works. And this is the definition of a coup. A coup d'etat is the removal of an existing government from power by illegal, unconstitutional seizure through deliberate political faction. And even if communists are only a crude minority in a nation that is trying a takeover, trying a coup, the coup formula is really significant. It can gradually topple even the most anti-communist of nations. Leninism mastered the coup in Eastern Europe with this formula, and the Chinese communists, the Maoists, followed the very same formula across Asia. This simple formula is being deployed again in the United Kingdom and in Canada and in the United States. Desperate communists are once again on track to steal political parties, that's where they begin, then to steal elections and to demoralize the souls of men, and then to capture entire nations in what looks like a communist revival, Communism 2.0 for the 21st century. So how can a coup be reversed? A coup can never succeed unless there is a lethargic and ignorant population. So what happens if citizens, after they've been enslaved, what if they were to come to their senses and realize that they are enslaved and wake up to freedom and start fighting back? Well, what they will need is knowledge and courage and unity, and this can overwhelm criminal governments if it spreads all through the population. Defiance can sweep through a nation as it did in Czechoslovakia, when small groups began to envision what it is that they wanted back. They wanted their culture back. They wanted not only freedom, but the responsibilities that come with freedom, because they understood what freedom was. They were willing to govern again, and to create, and to stand up and lead. They were willing to raise children who would never again give in to genocidal tyrants. And so in 1989, a small group of men began organizing a group to discuss these things. Actually, it was several years before that, in quiet, and they were planning. And then they began to do it openly and boldly, and it was called the Civic Forum by 1989. The secret police were watching, of course, and listening in to the meetings with disbelief. And there was more disbelief when the conductor of the Czech Philharmonic defied the government, and he refused to follow the orders of the Central Communist Committee to perform on communist television. Maestro Václav Neumann was in danger of being hauled away when all the members of the orchestra joined him in his moment of moral courage and told the authorities they were standing with their director. And then they planned their own concert in the huge Smetana Hall. They invited lots of dissident students, and they dared to play Beethoven's Ninth. And this heroic Neumann received a standing ovation when he took the podium. And then the concert started. The secret police had not noticed the dissonant literature that had been hidden in the concert program. And people read it, and they were inspired by the courage that they saw, and then the music that they heard. They grew delirious with the hope of a free culture, a free government, and a free nation. And when the last notes of the Ode to Joy died away, the freedom fighter who was there that night, Václav Havel of the Civic Forum, came on stage to applause, thunderous applause, and then he began introducing various members of the brave, courageous Civic Forum who were scattered in the audience. And at the sight of them, the students and the singers and the musicians who had been, by the way, they had been weeping while they were performing and playing. The entire audience exploded in a standing ovation. And Paul Behrman wrote this, quote, it was an ovation for civilization and spiritual values, for freedom, for the notions that sound silly and abstract if someone extols them at a mass rally, but are wonderfully lucid at a Beethoven concert. Now, Beethoven himself was a favorite son in the region, not only for his musical genius, but for his reputation as an anti-tyranny political reformer. And his music inspired resistance to more than just one tyrannical regime in history. Now, the day after that concert, the constructive revolutionary energy began to spread through the capital, Prague. Thousands gathered spontaneously, carrying banners proclaiming their commitment to freedom over slavery and to constitutional governance over totalitarian terror. The message in the streets was unified, and to the communist tyrants it appeared that the entire population was demanding their resignations from government, and that's exactly what they were demanding. And so then first one resigned in fear, and then another resigned, and then another, until the entire government had been replaced with free Czech citizens. And this movement was spreading not just through Czechoslovakia, it was spreading all across the Soviet world. Citizens were approaching members of the secret police on street corners and whispering to them, "We know who you are. We know where you live. We are not afraid of you anymore." And this is the voice of courage. And when the entire population speaks it, it is a voice of freedom which can no longer be suppressed. It was this groundswell of freedom which swept over Czechoslovakia and then spread simultaneously over the Soviet world in public defiance of communism. Until this kind of bold defiance happens again, communists will run their formulas and subjugate every sleepy and ignorant population. And not even the land of the free and the home of the brave is safe from a quiet communist coup. But if it happens, it can be reversed.